Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm back for today. It's gonna be a shorter stream today. I'm still a little under the weather from a couple days ago, so I'm just gonna be just doing a short stream. Want to rest my voice because I'm recording tomorrow as well, so I want to be in good shape for that. So I had played a league off stream after work last night, was it? I'm losing track. No, 2 days ago. And I had a 4-1, which was nice. After the 5-0, I changed one thing about the deck. Compared to the 5-0 league. This is just like increasingly looking like a pile driver meta. You have blue combo decks. You have blue decks with lots of blue creatures. You have blue removal spells in the form of Drown the Lock. We're seeing an uptick in Hydroblasts in order to beat Breach. And a downtick in Thalia strategies, which is the main matchups where Pile Driver is bad. It's also quite good in the Cloud Post matchups because they do not have a lot of ways to interact with Pile Driver. And killing them fast is the best thing you can be doing. The cut for this I made was a Gem Palm Incinerator. I kind of regretted it. I would very much like to find a different cut. I think I would like to go back up to 2 Gem Palm Incinerators, and then because I've been feeling a little removal heavy is why I did that. So I could try cutting Munitions Expert down to 2, but Expert is very good. I could cut Fanatic, but he's very cheap. He's quite good against Delver and lots of strategies. And I missed him quite a bit when I cut him before, and there's a lot of reasons to keep the 10th 1-drop around, right? The problem with the 3 experts, I have noticed that there is a mana issue where if your vials are compromised, then it can be difficult to cast him at times, especially like through a wasteland, because the mana is stretched pretty darn thin in this list. So it's possible that I should cut a Mug War Marshal or a Munitions Expert, or maybe the Gem Palm is correct. So we're going to look at this league that I played, and we're going to try to see, like, when I've drawn Pile Driver, would I rather it be a Gem Palm Incinerator, a Munitions Expert War Marshal, or am I happy having the Pile Driver? I can think of one instance where I wanted a Gem Palm Incinerator pretty bad, but I'm not sure outside of that. So let's go round 1. Round 1 was not what I expected. So on the draw, this hand was great. Obviously, we got this much better on the play, for sure. But turn 1 Lackey with Wasteland, fetch, good goblins to put in, and other cards to develop if we need it. We draw a land, which is nice. So leading our Lackey here. Opponent plays a Baleful Strix, which is interesting. So, interesting to note here, if this expert was Gem Palm Incinerator, it would be better because my opponent has Force of Will. So the Lackey doesn't get in this turn. Then opponent casts Doomsday, which is not what I expected in the slightest. Not even a little bit. So that was a huge, just like, what the fuck's going on? And because this Lackey is missing for 2 turns, I'm losing this game. So if that Gem Palm Incinerator, or if that Munitions Expert was a Gem Palm Incinerator, then Lackey would have dropped War Chief, and then this turn last turn I would have gotten to go, instead of just Wastelanding them and playing War Marshal, I would have gotten to go Matron Pile Driver Kill You. Right, because that'd be one, or actually I could have an even more elaborate line of matron, skirk, sack matron, play war marshal, sack war marshal and token, play another matron, get pile driver, sack token, play the pile driver. And then I believe that gets me one more pile driver trigger. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just pointless. But so I'd end up with, so be matron for 2. Oh no, I'd have 3 mana. So be matron, skirk, sack matron, play war marshal. War marshal is mana neutral. Yeah, so because the skirk would stick around, it would be one more pile driver trigger. So it'd be 2, 4, 6, 7 off the pile driver, 8, 9, 10, 11. It'd be 11 damage. So that would be enough. Doomsday has seen a resurgence. That's funny. So opponent has the kill here with the predict pile. Edge of Autumn, play Thassa's Oracle. So Jump on Incinerator would have been infinitely better than Munitions Expert because the Force of Will got me. Though I suppose, for the sake of argument, Force of Will would have hit the Matron. But the clock still would have been 2 turns faster. So I think that would still be... Because even if I just like cast the Matron and they forced it, then I play War Marshal, attack for 5, drop Matron, put in, probably grab Sling Gang or Pile Driver. So that was game 1. I don't really know what I'm doing against Doomsday for the most part, so I'm mulligan to 6 and I keep this because it's pretty aggressive. Like this is a turn 3 kill if I draw a land. And then we just kind of get wrecked by the turn 1 Fatal Push, which is like not what I was expecting at all. Vial was a good draw, so I can Vial plus Wasteland. But no 3rd land forthcoming. Makes my aggression pretty slow here. That lackey getting killed by Fatal Push was really brutal. Did not expect to see that out of Doomsday. I don't really know what to expect against Doomsday, to be terribly honest. So I try to set up for another fast kill next turn. But they have the old turn 4 here, Dark Rit, Doomsday, and so obviously, so this is much better than a Gem Palm would be, right? In this spot. I'm very happy to have this pile driver because it would have, if I was a turn faster, if the lackey had gotten to connect, I would be many turns faster. And, oh yeah, and then they win with Unearth Oracle, which is pretty funny. I don't think I boarded it. I didn't board in any Grave Hate besides the Surgical. And I forgot to board in the Damping Sphere, which I should have, though it's not very good. Like they usually Doomsday pass and then kill you. But maybe it increases their mana requirements very slightly, so maybe I should bring it in anyway. So that was round 1. Not super eventful for me. And next one, we're on the play. Keep an alright hand. I'm kind of hoping this is a combo matchup because this is into the turn 2 squad. But then it turns out to be Delver, and this hand is immediately far, far worse. So I freely attack into the Delver. I'm happy to trade there if I have to. And I end up getting Mountain because I'm just like, I can't just get Wastelanded next turn. I would just lose. So I play a Pile Driver. They don't daze it, which is nice. And they have a Pyromancer here. So I'm thinking, okay, we're actually not in a terrible spot, but I continue to miss lands. So I kept 2 lands and have had 2 draw steps, and neither of them have been land. So I get my attack in for 4, play Crater Maker, it resolves, which I didn't really expect. Stefan84, thanks for the follow. So opponent just does nothing, doesn't flip their Delver, just passes. Oh, right. No, sorry. They play a Dreadhorde Arcanist, but they have nothing going on. So this is interesting. I draw Jump Hom, which is a great draw. And there's a lot of things to consider here. I'm assuming they have at least a spell in their hand, right? I could go to kill the Dreadhorde with the Jump Hom. If they have a Bolt, then I sack whatever they're bolting, and then can Cratermaker it if I want to, or I could at that point go after the Pyromancer or the Delver. So I decide to attack first. I'm not sure if this is correct or not. Opponent blocks like this. I do cycle the Jump Hom on the Dreadhorde, and it just resolves, which I didn't expect. They cast Brainstorm. So Pyromancer and Pile Driver trade, which is fine. They flip on Preordain. And I drew a Vial, so that's nice. So I'm thinking I gotta answer this Delver, and I have an answer with the Cratermaker. They have another Dreadhorde, which is quite scary. And I continue to miss on land, so it's turn 5 and we haven't drawn a land yet. Vial gets force negationed, which is brutal. I figure they're gonna have a Bolt, so it's not worth just trying to sit there with a Cratermaker and block the Arcanist. I make a mistake here. I think I should have Cratermakered the Delver in this spot to avoid taking so much damage. But I kind of brain fart and let it through, and then I ended up Cratermakering the Delver on end step, I think. I play another Pyromancer. No, okay, so after they started playing the Pyromancer, after they played the third Pyromancer, I'm thinking, okay, my way to victory involves hitting another land, Matron, sack everything, Chainwhirler, take out these 4 creatures, and then hope that the Chainwhirler can brick the Arcanist, and then the Cratermaker can kill the Delver. I draw another Cratermaker, which, while not terrible, is pretty inefficient when I'm sitting on 2 mana. But Skirk is helpful here in that I do have mana open technically, but the Bolt here is just too much. Not going to be able to beat that many tokens from that spot with the mana situation. So really, we had good spells, we just didn't draw enough lands. 2-lander against Delver is just not going to get there when you don't draw any lands. So game 2, I keep a rather pretty weak hand, but the fact that I have 2 basics here, with a Black Source in hand, a Wasteland and a Port, War Marshal to gum up the board early, and a Ringleader for the late game, makes this hand kind of appealing to me on the play, because it's good. I think it's good against any of their hands that don't involve turn 1 Delver. And so Preordain go, I'm very happy to see, and I draw a Vial, which is awesome. So I immediately Wasteland the Volcanic and play the Vial. And here they have the Delver, but that's okay. It's still going to be a while before it starts like really threatening me. Chainwhirler's a good draw. So a little thing here. Wait until the Delver trigger resolves before you port. That's pretty important because if your opponent, if you port first, then the opponent can float blue and then like cast a Brainstorm, and it's like it's more efficient for them mana wise. So you want to wait for the Delver trigger to port because they might Brainstorm anyway, and then you can hold the port for their main phase and then end up like porting them end step or something. So they have Wasteland for my port, which is fine. They respect the lackey, so they don't attack, which is nice. More basics is fine. I'm just going to Vial in this War Marshal. Delver continues to refuse to flip, which is amazing for me. They do have the Abrade, which makes things scary because that Vial was carrying me pretty hard, even though we do have lots of lands in hand. We get our War Marshal down, and I'm just like hoping to rip Cavern to Chainwhirler this Delver. And I think, okay, so because I draw Pyrokinesis, this affects the texture of the game a lot. So here I'm going to jam my Chain Whirler into Daze. If they do have Daze, that's okay. I know I have an out to kill the Delver if I really, really have to. I'm also at 19. And I know that next turn I'm almost certainly jamming Ringleader as well. So if Chain Whirler eats a Daze, that's totally fine with me because that means the Ringleader is not. Daze or Force of Will is the logic there. So I get another basic. Chain Whirler does resolve, which is amazing. So now I feel pretty darn ahead. Then opponent plays True Name, so offense is bricked pretty substantially. We draw a second Pyrokinesis, which is okay. Our Ringleader only delivers us a Munitions Expert, but at least it's a red card that pitches to Pyrokinesis. And now that they've wasted our black source, we know what's going on. So I draw a Wasteland, and I just decide to chill. I'm not playing around Blue Blast by waiting, but this board is also hard for the Dreadhorde to attack into, so if I don't have to spend my Pyrokinesis to kill it, if they just like swing to cantrip, that's okay with me. So they do have the Bolt, so I don't want them to be able to Bolt twice, if I can help it, so I do end up Kinesising the Arcanist here. And they do have the Force, pitching Spell Pierce, which surprised me. I did not think they would have Spell Pierce in post board. And they don't attack here, which I find interesting. Like, they could have attacked and bolted the Ringleader, which would make Gem Palm no longer a way to kill the Dreadhorde. So I think that's a mistake on their end. I think they should have bolted the Ringleader. But maybe they're afraid of a different kind of removal spell. Or a different goblin. So here I play it really, really patiently. So this Matron's a really tough decision. And it ends up being Ringleader, but there's a lot of options there. So you could get Gem Palm, which could make sense, right? You Gem Palm the Dreadhorde Arcanist, and you know it's going to resolve. You know you're going to kill it unless they have Bolt, like another Bolt, and then Flashback Bolt. But even if that happens, you can Pyrokinesis it. So it's not that desperate. But my thought then was just like, how are you actually winning the game? I need to generate more of a board state in order to punch through this True Name eventually. And so I go for the Ringleader here because I really want to be able to Ringleader into some red cards that I feel fine about spewing, because the first Ringleader was pretty bad. So I do have a Bolt at the end step. And I'm like, you know what? If they want to Bolt a 1/1 to keep their Dreadhorde alive, that's fine. That's a poor use of a Bolt in the graveyard, to be terribly honest. So I rip Cavern, which is great. It basically just ensures that Daze doesn't destroy me here. But not Wastelanding ended up not mattering in this specific circumstance, but if I didn't draw Cavern, not Wastelanding is obviously really important. We have a fantastic Ringleader here, like super, super, super good, where we hit Fanatic, Matron, Gem Palm. So now I'm like, okay, I can turn the corner here. And I upkeep Pyrokinesis, pitching Fanatic to kill the Dreadhorde. Draw another Cavern, which is great. And I go Matron up Sling Gang, because I'm pretty sure the only way I ever lose this game from this board state is a Wrath. Like kind of multiple bolts scenario, where they go like Chain Lightning you, Bolt you, attack you for 3, suddenly you're at 6 or 5, then they have some more burn or something. Like that would be the worst case scenario. They flash in Brazen Borrower, which is excellent. The card's not very good against us. And I'm very happy to cycle Gem Palm here. Gem Palm's fantastic here. And because I drew a second Cavern, and even if they were to draw Wasteland, I can still cast the Sling Gang here. I decide to Wasteland to cut them off of double red spell. Second Sling Gang, it's just great draw as well, obviously. So they do Chain Lightning in my face. So this is kind of what I was saying. They know that they have to get aggressive here in order to possibly win. Port is great. I drop my Sling Gang, and I can attack for 5, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have a drain for 7, so I'm 1 short here of lethal. But the port ensures that they don't have they would have to have a bolt in hand there, and the port ensures that they can't top deck it. And even if they did, we had a second Sling Gang. So that was game 2. That second ringleader was really, really, really good. Going for the ringleader rather than a jump palm definitely won me the game. Another decent hand here. We've got turn 1 Vial. 2 lands is a little sketchy. I would love a 3rd land over like the Sling Gang in my opener. And they do have the turn 1 Delver, so I might be somewhat inclined to play around Daze with this this Vial, because it is so important. But the fact that we do have 3 2-drops makes it less crushing if we don't have it. But because of the turn 1 Delver, the pressure's on, so I jam and it does resolve, which I did not expect. Delver blind flips on Brainstorm, as Delver does. Second Expert's interesting. I decide that I really, if I get wastelanded, it's really, really bad for me, because I want to keep ticking up my Vial, but I also want to be able to cast my 2-drops. So I'm like, okay, if they have an answer, if they have one of their Braids or Brazen Borrowers hitting my Vial next turn, it's pretty bad for me to fetch not bad lands. I will say this is a spot where Swamp would be very good, because I can play the War Marshal and still cast it off basics and still cast Munitions Expert next turn, even if they dealt with the Vial. So I jam my War Marshal, just really, really hoping to untap with Vial for 1 more turn. Opponent fetches and does have the Wasteland, and they play True Name. So now I'm like, okay, that's a hell of a clock. Turn 1 Delver, turn 3 True Name is very scary. So knowing that I am going to be vialing into 2-drop this turn, and it's going to be Munitions Expert, I decide to pay Echo here. Unless I drew Cavern, in which case I would be matroning this turn as well. I think it's always better to pay Echo here, because it's essentially an additional life from Sling Gang. So anticipating that my mana is going to be spoken for, or is either going to be wasted or spoken for, like I could play the Crater Maker here, but I don't think that's super important. And I would rather get that extra life, right? I decided to just Expert right then and there. And because I'm at 9, I have a Dread Horde. So in this spot, so it was tempting to Expert and then tick up to 3, but because I really want to hit my land drops, I decide to Violent Matron and grab Gem Palm. It's a close decision, actually. So the Gem Palm draws me closer to more lands, which I'm very scared of a bounce spell on my Vial at this point, so I really, really, really want to hit lands. But it's more like card efficient, because this Expert's probably not coming out of my hand anytime soon if I don't use it right there. So I'm not sure what is strictly correct there, to be honest. So here's an instance where maybe if this Expert was a Pile Driver, would be decent, just because it's more castable. So end up getting Matron for Gem Palm. But now I do feel a little naked, because I only have I have 0 Gem Palms in my deck now, because I only have the 1. Chain Whirler's a decent draw. So we're really just like, please God, don't have Double Bolt or a Braid. So Double Bolt's really, really scary for me, because that would be lethal. They have a Dread Horde. So Dread Horde is fine with me, so I know I'm not dead. However, it is scary in a way because I might be dead next turn. We miss land drops again. So around a Crater Maker, and I'm just swinging for the fences because this is now a full race scenario, and they don't block. So here's a little bluff here. They're still tapped out. Playing the Crater Maker first kind of disincentivizes them from blocking, because if they block and I do have a land drop that I'm hiding, so I'm bluffing that I have a land to activate the Crater Maker after they block. And if they do block, then it's not so big a deal. I still Violence Lingang and sacrifice the creature that's blocked. No real loss to me. I still deal a damage, gain a life. So leading on the Crater Maker rather than I think that's a stronger bluff than playing a post combat or holding up mana for post combat main phase. Opponent plays Abrade now, but they're exactly a turn too late on this Abrade. Like, if this Abrade was a turn earlier, I would be in a much scarier situation. So we violin our Sling Gang. And now we have 8 goblins on board, plus 9 off, essentially 9 off of the War Marshal. So they attack, flashback, ponder. And here I get a little cheeky in that I sacrifice the War Marshal, drain them for 1, and effectively create a blocker. So I can just triple block the Dread Horde. And now if they want to not lose the Dread Horde, they have to kill one of my 1/1s that's going to get sacrificed anyway. So it's just like pure value for me, right? And they want to use their bolt on my Sling Gang, because that's far more important than the 1/1s. But so they don't have it, and I get to untap with Sling Gang with 7 goblins in play. So even if they did have the removal spell for Sling Gang, I just have so much life gain here that it's hard for them to come back. So they do have the bolt. And so I decided to throw a lot of my board at their face right here because I just don't want to get burnt out. They do have 3 cards in hand and 2 red sources. So I decided to play the Crater Maker, put them to 2, and then wasteland their red source. So double bolt is not likely from here. They would need specifically red source and another lightning bolt to finish me off. So it was a close race. It was very, very close. And of course, sacking as much as I did, but not too much, means that even if they had 1 bolt plus True Name block, they would still die at 2 life. So that's exactly enough. I sacked exactly as many creatures as I need to put myself out of dead to double bolt range, plus they are at 2, so 4 creatures can attack, and bolt plus block does not survive. And, with another 2-drop that I can cast, and many, I've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, got like 19 lands still in the deck. Pretty good shot of drawing a 3rd land to Matron or Chainwhirler, and Chainwhirler would almost certainly close the door there. So that was round 2. It was a close one. Now we get into our breach matches. This game 1 was like kind of hilarious in that I feel like I got away with like a real steal. So I get to be on the play. I keep this pretty weak hand, kind of hoping that it's a control matchup, which ends up not being, obviously. But so the appeal of this hand is that it has double wasteland. There's been a lot of Cloud Post online, and having 2 wastelands in your opener against Cloud Post is just awesome. Plus, all of our mana is perfect. We have double Cavern, Pile Driver's decent, Matron's great. It's a little slow, but on the play, I think this is keepable. So Vista, Preordain off Snow Island does get my combo senses tingling, and then I play Lotus Petal. I'm like, alright, this is what's happening. Hand is now bad. Draw another Cavern, which is not good. Now my Wasteland's like pretty embarrassing. So now I'm just like, okay, maybe they'll have a really slow draw, and I can get there with a squad. But they expose a dual land immediately. I'm just like, I mean, Wasteland's going to happen. You interact in the ways that you can, right? They just keep cantripping. Play Vista, so the Wasteland is off. Draw Munitions Expert, which is not very good. Powder plinks in for 1. So the fact that we kept a pretty high, like a quote-unquote high curve hand, like we didn't have any other 2-drops, I mean, this Pile Driver is doing a lot less than it might otherwise do. So they have a Bolt for the Pile Driver here, which is A-okay with me. We fetch out Plains. I draw a Warchief, and then they Orms Chant me. So can't squad them, which sucks. And they predict themselves. But opponent still doesn't have it, so they go for Teferi here, which presumably they're using to bounce Matron to keep me from getting down squad. So I flash in my Expert, so I still have a creature on board after the Teferi bounce. Also, you have to do it right then, because obviously you can't cast anything. They bounce their own Petal, which makes sense. So this setup is pretty good for me, right? We're gonna get to squad them, and still deploy our Warchief. However, they do have a wrinkle. Throw a wrinkle in my plan here. I decide to send these guys at Teferi and the Warchief at their face. Or sorry, I send the Expert at and Warchief at their face, and then Matron at Teferi. I'm not anticipating the second Bolt here, but that's what ends up happening. They bolt the Warchief, which sucks because although the Teferi does die, I don't get to squad them this turn because I don't have the Proud discount anymore. However, they did trade their Petal for it. Opponent goes to Brain Freeze themselves, so they're looking to find Savine's Reclamation here. That's why they would do it. However, they do not hit, and that is huge. So I flash my Expert. I know it doesn't have any more targets in the main, so I'm just like, flash 1/1s, get them. Get them. And we draw Trash Master. And I decide that I think about playing Trash Master, but I decide that so the Trash Master basically puts them on a 2-turn clock, right? Attack for 6. However, squatting here I think is just better because they milled an Underworld Breach with their Brain Freeze, meaning that they only have 3 remaining breaches and a Sabine's Reclamation to get one back. So their number of outs to actually kill me are severely reduced if I squad them here. And so I take a look at their deck. See if I can pause right as I look at it. There we go. So this was their deck. So they have a Forcible in hand, and maybe like a Spell Pierce, maybe a Predict. Is that, or no? They have a Petal, right? So they've used one Petal. Yeah. So their hand is Forcible Petal. So while it might be tempting to go take the 3 breaches here, right? That looks like the obvious line. However, you really have to recognize the power of Sabine's Reclamation with Intuition. So what I end up doing is I take Reclamation, Breach. Now, Intuition is now no longer an out. If I took the 3 breaches, what they could do is play Intuition, and their pile would be LED, Reclamation. And then no matter what I give them, they can either cast Sabine's Reclamation or flash it back out of the graveyard, get Breach, kill me. So taking Breach, Reclamation means that if they draw Intuition, they can they can do whatever Intuition pile they want. I just put Breach. I just give them any non-Breach card out of the Intuition pile, and Breach will go to the graveyard, and then they can't win the game anymore. So by leaving them with 1 Breach in the deck, they're on a 1-outer, basically. They have a lot of cantrips still, but they've only got 1 turn to do it, And since they don't hit this turn, Trash Master lets me cross the finish line here for more than lethal. We had 8 on board, and now we have 9. So they did draw the intuition. That's the thing. They either had the intuition in hand, and they had 2 in their deck, which is possible, or they drew it. And specifically taking out what I took out won the game for me. So obviously turn 8, game 1 is not what you expect. But this is the thing. It's like they had a very like control draw, right? They drew their 2 bolts. They drew Predict. Force of Will, that was dead all game. Even though they brainstormed 3 times, they ended up they just couldn't get the Force of Wills out of their hands. Redundant Petals, like they drew like a bad control deck, and they just never found Breach itself, which was really lucky for me. So then game 2 is pretty wild. So I keep this like insanely hateful hand, right? It doesn't have a clock, not for a while anyway. We've got 2 pieces of Grave Hate in 2 different kinds, which is really relevant. Like imagine if this was a ley line. If this was a ley line, and I play my Relic on turn 1, Serenity or Wear Terror ruins me. Absolutely ruins me. I draw an Expert, which is honestly not the worst thing in the world, so it attacks. And again, based on sideboarding against Breach, I'm cutting my Vials, my Ringleaders, and then I've decided 2 War Marshals, 1 Expert, 1 Fanatic. I think I want to leave my Experts in the deck. Killing Teferi is relevant because I do bring in 3 Red Blasts, Mind Break, and Surgical as things that care about Teferi's passive. So having some direct damage to Teferi does matter. And also you really want to answer Mentor. And that is part of why I leave in Jump Home, because I have had games against Breach where they had Mentor, but they could be protecting it with Force of Will, and I really wanted Jump Home on my deck over Expert, because the uncounterability was so important. Like even through Cavern, there's a difference because they could just like force it even with it's caverned out and still get prowess triggers and a monk, which could maybe mean that Teferi is still alive. I mean the Mentor is still alive. So we have the Jump Home in our hand here. Port's a decent draw here. I don't think I'm going to die next turn through Surgical Mindbreak Trap, so I'm fine tapping out with my Relic. So opponent has cantripped 4 times. So I'm assuming their hand is shaping up pretty well. Draw Pile Driver, which I'm not comfortable deploying yet. I opt to port and hold up Relic activation. I technically speaking should have fetched in my turn while they were tapped out, because if I were to fetch end step for some reason, they could like blow it up in response, and then I'm sad. So I do draw Damping Sphere, which is really strong. So I play my Damping Sphere because now I'm feeling the port isn't doing a whole lot, and Damping Sphere is just like better than port here. And this incentivizes my opponent to go for Intuition. Here's where Surgical really shines, right? So opponent's Intuition package is Serenity, Wear Tear. Now Damping Sphere does have some downside, right? It affects me as well. Mupenda, thanks for the follow. Missed that earlier. So because I've also cast a spell this turn, the Surgical effectively costs 1 and a Phyrexian. So I have to fetch and pay. And this does mean I'm tapping out a Relic. However, this ends up being upside because my opponent is deeply incentivized to go for it while I'm tap out of my own Relic activation. So grab 2nd Badlands, and then I Surgical the Serenity. So that was great, right? Surgical took out the Serenity out of their graveyard and out of their hand. And I saw their hand. I wish Moto held it up a little bit longer, but it was Breach, LED, Brain Freeze, Petal, Wear Tear, I think are those 5 cards. So this tells me all I need to know, that this Mindbreak Trap is going to win me the game. So they go Breach, can't Mindbreak that. LED, can't Mindbreak that. But then because of Damping Sphere's specific text, everything going up by 1. So the LED cost 1, and this wear chair is going to cost 4. So it eats up the mana from the LED and the rest of their mana in the battlefield, on the battlefield. So they have to crack the LED. Yeah. So they had. Right. So they didn't have wear chair in hand. I gave them the Serenity and then Surgical Disc. So wear chair's in the graveyard. However, because Damping Sphere is so much more powerful than Thorn of Amethyst in terms of taxing, they are forced to deal with the Damping Sphere before they can do anything else. So they have like the full combo with protection here, basically, from like any destroy effects, or they might even have been able to beat Relic activation here. I'm not sure. Like they have the Brain Freeze, so I think they could. So they go to wear the Damping Sphere, and because it ate up all of their mana in order to do that, Mind Brave Trap on. Excuse me, I'm really losing my voice. Mind Break Trap on the wear wins the game, because normally, they might, if they had any mana left over, they could escape the LED, flashback, Brain Freeze, and so on, and just go off from there. But the Damping Sphere completely locked them down. Now their Underworld Breach dies, and I get to pop Relic and eat their whole yard, which has the Safine's Reclamation and a Brain Freeze. Like, they just have 0 cards, so they just concede from here, because they're gonna have no cards in hand, 0 cards in the graveyard, and then I'm gonna play Pile Driver into Sling Gang if I draw a card, if I draw a land off the Relic pop, or my draw step, or my next draw step. And if not, then I can just like deploy Expert or Jump Home, and they would still have to beat the Damping Sphere from that board state, which would be quite difficult to do. So the unique combination of Varied Hate, where we drew 4 sideboard cards that attack them on a different angle each time. And I think that's super important for beating Breach, right? Surgical messed with their intuition. Relic forced them to go off earlier than they might have. Like, they could have waited. But me being tapped out of my own Relic incentivized them to go for it. The Damping Sphere ate up all their mana so that I could afford to counter their answer and not their Brain Freeze. Because if I was forced to counter the Brain Freeze, what they could do would be crack LED. So like Mind Break Trap, their Brain Freeze. They would have, I guess if they didn't cast the Wear Tear, they'd have 7 cards in the graveyard, so they could go. They would have enough to Brain Freeze LED Intuition, I think. I mean, if the Damping Sphere wasn't here, then they definitely have enough to do that. If it's just the Relic, I think they could too. I'm not quite sure on the math there. So that was round 1 against Breach. Or round 3, And here's another Breach match. Another generically good hand, right? 4 lands, 2 of them are Mana Denial, 2 of them are fetches, which is great. Vial, Crater Maker, War Chief is just good hand. I'd keep this in any game in the blind, and against most decks I would keep this. Against the most fair decks, this hand is great. So another one of these starts makes me think it's either Miracles or it's Breach. So Brainstorm off the port. Scares me a little bit. They go fetch, land, pass. I bluff a Vial activation. I'm trying to do that more, to be more attentive with that. They draw another mountain. I could go War Chief, Crater Maker, attack, but I figure a porting here, like if it is control, then porting is great. Because it stops like an Oko or something. So here I'm like, oh, nope, it's Breach. Pedal, pedal, pedal. Brain Freeze themselves. And then they have Savines in hand. They hit the Breach, so from this board state, I am dead. So if they didn't hit the Savines Reclamation there, then they're not in a fantastic spot. We would get to Crater Maker into War Chief, Ringleader, and if I hit like a Matron or a Pile Driver, they would be very close to dead. So there's that. Game 2. Here I keep, so this is the hand. It's like, this is a pretty fast clock. Everything's uncounterable, and I have a Mindbreak Trap as hate. And I draw a Chalice. So deciding what I want to do is difficult here. I could play the Pile Driver, drastically increase the clock from 1 damage a turn to 4 damage a turn. I could play the Chalice, and then if the question is there, what do I put the Chalice on? Post board I've seen a lot against Breach that Chalice on 1 is superior, because cutting off the cantrips keeps them from pivoting to their secondary game plan, which is Monastery Mentor. So if you Chalice on 1 and it does resolve, then they're going to have a much harder time putting together that alternate kill, right? They can still kill you with like the normal combo, because the normal combo doesn't care at all about Chalice on 1. But I do have a Mindbreak Trap for that, and Chalice on 1 stops a Silence if they kept that in. They might keep, they're not going to keep Silence in, but there's a decent chance they keep in Orm's Chant, just as like a Time Walk effect to stop attacks. So go for the Chalice on 1. And it does get Force of Will, which honestly is great for me, because now this Mindbreak Trap is that much more likely to resolve. So opponent just ponders and passes. I draw a Lackey, which is fantastic. Now the clock is like pretty real. So I go, I think it's a double spell, quite nice. Then opponent drops something pretty scary on me. They have a Monastery Mentor. And they do have the LED to make a token as well, which is pretty important. But LED not being Petal is pretty relevant. So we draw War Marshal. So this Skirk gets to do some really awesome things here that we normally would be in a really bad spot here. I'd have to like Matron up, Jump on, or Munitions Expert, and wait a turn to kill the Mentor. And waiting a turn is huge. Like, they can cast like 4 spells next turn easily with any cantrip. So here I decide to attack. The Prospector is super important for how my turn is going to play out. So I decide to attack here, because basically what I'm trying to decide is, am I going to get Chain Whirler, or am I going to get Jump Home? Or Munitions Expert? The War Marshal effectively generating a mana here is really, really good. So what I'm kind of hoping is that they block Lackey with Mentor. However, I think I failed to do some math here, and I think I realized that I am 1 short of matroning for Chain Whirler and still using Cavern, because you don't want to tap out to or no, I can still do it, but it would eat a lot of my board. I think it would end up having to sacrifice the Prospector, which is a problem because I really want to be able to top deck Red Blasts from this spot, and the red source being provided from Prospector is really valuable. This is also why I didn't attack with the Prospector, because it would be a really bad trade for me if they just blocked the Monk token, and then like if they like block here, I deal them 5. It's so bad. So just they take the safer route of just blocking with the Monk token. So I do some math. Matron is going to come into play off of the War Marshals, and I. Yeah, okay, so this is a riskier line, I guess. Yeah, so I'm not playing around Force of Will by doing that. So I guess that is fairly risky for me to do. Granted, they're unlikely to have 2 forces, I think. They already used the first one. And they only have 3 cards in hand, so they need 4th blue card. I don't think that's super likely from this spot. But it would be safer to go for Jump Home here, for sure. But on the flip side, this effectively generates 3 more damage per turn because of the Pile Driver. So, take out the Mentor, and I still have 7 on board, 7 damage. They're on a 2-turn clock still. They predict themselves. They hit a dual land, so I'm happy to fire off Wasteland at that just immediately. They Orm's Chant. So this kind of explains why they played out the dual land, right? Is that they wanted to kick Orm's Chant to stop me from attacking for a turn. However, this is still good for me, right? Because this means that this chant isn't stopping me from mind breaking them. So they're fully not playing around mind break, right? And I play out my land because I kind of want to bluff that I have nothing. And so I'm fine, representing a weak hand, basically. So they preordain, fetch, ponder. So they're obviously digging down for combo pieces. They only have got 3 cards, so it's not nothing for them. They do have 1 combo piece, so they need two more pieces. Draw Matron, which is great. And here's so they go for Swordsing the Prospect, or Swordsing the Pile Driver, which kind of sucks because I really wanted the mana that he could represent. But here I end up losing a lot of my board. But the Prospector, again, generating so much mana, I get to Matron up Squad here. Because they've used a Bolt, right? Or no, not a Bolt. They've used a Plow. So I'm thinking, maybe they don't have another removal spell, and this squad can really go the distance. It also just cuts their routes a lot. So let's look at what they have here. So this is another difficult squad decision. So we see they either cut a Forcible or they have a Forcible in hand, because there's 2 in the deck and there's 1 in the graveyard. There's a Bolt, or they only have 1, though I think they played 2 in game 1, so I'm pretty sure they have a Bolt in hand. They also have a Breach in hand. So basically, it looks like they have everything. But however, that's on the face of it. In order to fit in the Mentors and the Wear Tears that they've got here, Breach has to cut something, right? And so a lot of Breach players end up cutting combo pieces like Brain Freeze and sometimes Breach, and Petals LEDs get trimmed to various degrees. Various players do that. So I forget what I opt to do. I think I take 3 Breaches here. I think that's what I end up doing. Or it might be the 2 Breach Savine's package again, like I took last time. No, I just took 3 Breaches. Yeah, so I take the 3 Breaches because on the off chance that they boarded out a Breach, now they need to find their one other Mentor to win. So they just fetch pass. So this is I've hardcast Force of Will, right? So I attack. They go to 2. I play Relic. They let that resolve. So they had nothing here. So this makes me think that they. Oh wait, no. Did they have 2 Bolts game 1, or am I misremembering? That was the other game. They didn't show 2 Bolts game 1. That was the other match. So they likely only had 1 Bolt. So I guess that's why they scooped the squad. I guess they boarded out. I guess they boarded out a Breach, and they boarded out a Force. Because they probably would have hardcast Force on that Relic, because that Relic's worth a lot. Because if they can Savine's back Mentor, that's pretty good. Yeah, so I think that's how they board it. So it's interesting, Squad gets better post-board against them because they do shave combo pieces, whereas otherwise, game 1, they're all like 4x for the combo pieces. So squad definitely pulling weight there. Now it's game 3. Yes. So this hand's interesting as well, right? It's the reason I kept this, right, is we've got Lacking to War Chief, which is great. We have a Wasteland, which sometimes is good. The first Wasteland's usually pretty good. The follow-ups are usually worse. We have a Red Blast for Intuition. And we have an answer to a Monastery Mentor. So I think on the play in game 3, they're very likely to keep a hand that really tries to kill you with Mentor, like play Mentor on turn 2. And they're likely going to play to that situation. So the fact that this kills Mentor on turn 2 uncounterably is pretty appealing. Second Wasteland's pretty poor draw. Obviously, having the Red Blast mana is nice as well. Opponent Preordains. I do have Plow for the Lackey, which really sucks. I hate my lackeys keep getting killed by these combo decks, which is like not great. Pile Driver's a good draw though. I decide right. I regretted this play as soon as I made it. I passed with Expert and Reb up, because I was thinking I would very likely want to Reb something this turn. However, I kind of forgot that they would very likely want to Intuition on my end step, and so I think it's fine to tap out for Pile Driver there. So I think I should have played Pile Driver last turn, and now it's a turn slow. Draw another War Chief, which is good and bad, because without a third red source, I can't play it without putting Reb down. So the cast Predict here. Because of my mana situation here, I fire off the Reb, because even though it's a worse target than Intuition, like Intuition's the best Reb target by a lot, I don't really want to have to hold up Red Elemental Blast for much longer. I want to be able to start tapping out for my War Chief. So I fire off Reb. It's card advantage, they would have drawn 2 cards. And they pass again. And I draw the third red source, so I feel a little silly. But we can still beat a Mentor, so that's something. We get in for 5, which is pretty solid. So they're on a clock. They're close to dead next turn. Ponder. So I start selling a bluff, because I'm extremely vulnerable here if they're going for it. So I fetch out Badlands, and I sit and wait. And I also do this thing that I learned, that when you have priority and you have a spell that you technically can, like, it's a phase where it's allowed to be cast. Oh, I'm not seeing the chat at all. My phone was not showing me in the chat this whole time. Hey, Aura. Have I tried splashing Oko and Goblins? Someone type something in chat. I just want to see if my phone's registering it properly. Alright, cool. That's good. Alright, so back on track. I was wondering why chat was just like totally still. I couldn't see it at all. So basically, because Expert has Flash, if I had the mana for it, I could cast it this turn, right? Or like on their turn. So what I do is I click on the Expert, and then what it will say for them here is Kadern is paying costs or something like that. And so by doing that, I am really selling the idea that I have an instant. Specifically Red Blast, because I've seen that already. So I sit here and I like click that, and then I wait, and then I pass priority. So I'm trying to sell the idea that I have a Red Blast, but I decide not to hit their Ponder. So they go Breach here. I do the same thing. Paddle. And they Swords the War Chief. They Ponder. So the thing is, they don't have Brain Freeze. They're whiffing on Brain Freeze. So see their hand? Alright. So they had Wear Tear Force of Will in their hand. And think it was Wear Tear, Force of Will blue card. So they were prepared for the Artifact Enchantment Hate, and I didn't have it, and so they had a dead card in their hand, right? Force of Will also not doing a whole lot against my more like aggro, very creature-based draw. So they pondered to try to find the Brain Freeze. So this is their last chance, right? Because if they don't hit the Brain Freeze here, then they don't have enough mana to escape Ponder. They don't have enough cards in graveyard in order to escape Ponder again, and still have mana to, because they'd have to exile their LED to Ponder, and then they wouldn't have enough mana to Brain Freeze. So my sick bluff didn't really matter, but they end up shuffling off the Ponder and they don't find a Brain Freeze, which obviously is insane for me. We draw Sling Gang. So I'm a tiny bit short of going 1 mana short of War Chief Sling Gang kill you. But I jam the War Chief. Attack for 5. So they're going to have 2 cards. And then Sling Gang. And I draw Chalice, so that's cool. So they drew another Plow, which is kind of funny. So again, right, like Breach drawing its control draws is like pretty good for me. I drop Chalice on 1 here. I can't kill them this turn, but I can next turn for sure. So I just want to make their top decks as bad as possible. I don't want them drawing Brainstorm here and winning. Also, I don't want them to have another removal spell for Sling Gang. Flash an Expert, draw Turmoil's Crypt, which is also great. So I definitely can't die. Attack for 4. Not worried about any removal with this setup. Play Sling Gang and drain for lethal. So really intense match. Obviously, I was lucky there that they didn't find the Brain Freeze, one of their 3 to 4 Brain Freezes off those. I guess they had 2 Ponders, right? But the pressure that we put on them made them go for it sooner, right? Like they had to go for a non-deterministic kill because War Chief Piledriver was so threatening. Like they plowed the War Chief first, right? And then they had to go for it. Like they were scared of the damage that they were taking every turn. We were attacking for 5 multiple turns in a row, right? They cast 3 Swords to Plowshares. Right, so they had a redundant pedal. So that when they lost their hand to the LED, it was like pedal, Wear Tear, Force, I think. So that was that. So the Cyber Plan versus Breach is definitely coming together, right? I'm 5-3 versus Breach now, and ever since I changed my plan away from the ley lines and kind of diversified more, I think I'm either 4-0 or 4-1 against Breach, which is awesome. Like, should be a very tough matchup. Again, I think my opponents probably are misplaying to some extent. A lot of Breach pilots right now don't really play it optimally yet, which obviously is great. And here we get paired against Belcher. And I know it's Belcher. I know this username. His hands, like as far as hands against Belcher, is about as good as it's gonna get, right? We have Tormund Lackey, turn 2 War Chief Crater Maker, maybe kill an artifact mana piece like a Chrome Mox, and maybe that randomly screws him out of a game. Spoiler alert, it does not. So, Petal, Mox, Wall, Gamble, Echo. Hand is now a lot worse, and then they have both Burning Wish and Charbelcher to kill me. So, uneventful game 1. Hey, PGS with the 15 bits. Poggers. Thanks a lot. Now this is game 2. So, this hand, I know how much Belcher relies on Echo the Aeons to fix its consistency problems, right? Like it really goes for Echoes a lot. And so my chances in this matchup are so bad that I think keeping a hand like this makes sense, right? Because Obviously, the second Wasteland doesn't do anything. But 2 red blasts means that I can go just fetch go, and if they go for turn 1 Echo, they lose. If they have turn 1 Goblins or turn 1 Charbelcher, I'm dead. I have 1 Pithing Needle, 1 Mindbreak Trap to try to stop that. They have 4 Echo the Aeons. They keep a lot of hands based on it, so I'm like, all right, let's see what happens. Also, squad, if I draw a Goblin, we can squad somewhat reasonably. So they land grant, and look at this. So they have Taiga, LED, Petal, Seething Song, Empty, Burning Wish, Echo. So because so much of their mana is based in LEDs, like they can't Seething Song here, which is amazing for me. If they had 1 more actual mana, I would be dead because they can empty. Seething Song empty, and there's no way I can beat that from this hand. Even if I draw into Pyrokinesis, it's probably not good enough. But the fact they have 2 LEDs means that they discard the whole hand, and I get to rep their Time Twister here. Now they still have 5 mana on the battlefield effectively. However, I'm a huge luck sack and top deck Lackey, and I decide not to wasteland them. I decide to hold up Reb on the off chance they draw a second Echo and then can flash it back, because I feel like they probably need the draw 7 to win from here, at least in a quick manner. And because of that, squad isn't really all that useful against Belcher most of the time, so I'm just going to play a 5/3. Just try to kill him rather than tap out and ran out and then get echoed and die. Draw a Chain Whirler, which really puts me extremely far ahead because now they would need an actual Charbelcher to kill me. And so, because I can beat any amount of Empty the Warrens. So we just hit them for 6 a couple times, and we draw a Pile Driver, which is awesome. Because now we just have actual lethal. Pile Driver swing for 5, this swings for 5, and this swings for 1, so we have a lot of mana. So they Spirit Guide out a they cast Spirit Guide to... They Elvish Spirit Guide to Simian Spirit Guide. Ugh. But we get to swing for the fences, put them down to 1, and then Chain Whirler finishes them off. So that was our insanely lucky win versus Belcher. This is even better. So, this hand beats like a turn 2 Empty the Warrens. If I had another red card, I may have kept this hand, hoping that they would go for empty. Because I can Pyrokinesis to stay alive and then wipe the rest. But because I don't have another red card, I decide to throw it back. This card had those other 2 hands had 0 sideboard cards. This is my 4. This is like the dream 4. So I throw back everything but I got land, fetch, matron, for my Mindbreak Trap. This is just the best 4 imaginable for this matchup. So Tinderwall, it's kind of funny. If they went Tinderwall pass, I probably would have lost. Because Tinderwall breaking Lackey would just be the actual worst. So they go Rite of Flame, Gamble, LED, Echo the Aeons, Mindbreak Trap it. You have 0 cards, 0 permanents. Draw a second Lackey, which is also one of the best draws in the deck. Pelion pass. Draw a Reb, which is great. Matron. I Matron for Matron here. I'm willing to let them top deck Echo. If they drew LED Echo in a row, they got me. It's way better to tap out for a second Lackey, because now we draw Surgical as well, which is just like fantastic. Because now we don't have to worry. I do some math, like what's a good clock that's also disruptive? I drop the Trash Master because that means that if they go like Chrome Mox, I can Shatter in response to Imprint, so they never get mana from it. And then I draw step, Surgical to LEDs, and that prompts a concession. So that was the super sick win versus Belcher to get the 4-1 in the league. So we're presenting lethal 2, 4, 6, 8. So on a mull of 4, we're going to kill them. This is our turn 4, so we're gonna kill him on turn 5. Unless if we drew Sling Gang, we'd have actual lethal, or another matron. So I have 3 outs to top deck lethal from this spot, even if they didn't concede. Yeah, pretty wild that goblins can win on turn 5 on a mulligan to 4 with 3 pieces of interaction. Like, that's pretty crazy. Like, goblins is a powerful deck when Lackey really gets going, and you know, you get the right things to line up. Like, you can do some really crazy things. Nosto XP, thanks for the follow. So yeah, that was my league 2 days ago. I thought it was really crazy. Some really good games that were worth going over. So I do want to talk about, what do we want to do about this? The War Marshal draw, the second War Marshal, drawing the War Marshal, the one of War Marshal against Breach ended up being really good because it enabled the Prospector to do its work in getting the Mentor off the table. Honorable playing Post. That's awesome. Yeah, the popularity of Post is a big draw to this card. This card's really good against just like most decks right now. Like, it's really good. It's good against Breach, and then it's good against the anti-Breach decks. Damping Sphere has definitely impressed me so far. Oh, that's awesome. Glad you watched the YouTube channel. Appreciate that. Squad's been great, as was seen multiple games there. So, are we in a meta where I'm supposed to trim Munitions Expert or Jump Home Incinerator? Because I do feel like I'm slightly removal heavy. I don't think I want to trim the War Marshal. Like, this looks fine to me, right? Like, the 3 pile drivers did work that league, right? We faced 4 combo decks and beat 3 of them in no small part because the pile drivers hit for in between 3 to 7 damage. We had like one game where the pile driver was hitting for 1. How can you go turn 1 tapped land go? Yeah. Post does have some stupid draws. I got turn 1 Thought-Knot Seared. 2 Monolith, Thought-Knot Seared. Turn 1, yeah. Yeah, the Monolith draws are what makes Post like really gross. Like Connor, I faced Post in the prelim, the showcase, and they had turn 1 Thought-Knot Seer. It was like, it was Tomb, Monolith, Key, Untap Monolith, Thought-Knot, into turn 2 6-mana Ugin, turn 3 Karn Great Creator. I was just like, what the fuck? You're the tap land go deck, but you have like 6 mana on turn 2, 4 on turn 1. Like, it was really stupid. I did lose that match, but I mean, Goblins is pretty favored against Eldrazi in general. Post is harder than Eldrazi aggro, but I still feel very good against most Post constructions. Like, I had literally in the showcase, I had literally 1 sideboard card. I brought in my Pithing Needle, and that was it. Creator Maker is really good against Post, like really good, and so is Pile Driver. Like, just kill him. Though it is really important for me to remember how, Wet Ball is good right now. How Port is not as good against Post as I want it to be, and that I should actually prioritize developing my board first and then porting, as opposed to a lot of other matchups where I want to drag things out, which is how I normally play port. I normally play port in a very like delaying tactic method. I need to play my stuff first and then start porting to lock them out, like keep them from casting like all this dust or something. Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like port on turn 2 on like Cloud Post really doesn't do a whole lot in my experience. I'd be much better off casting my 2-drop, and then after the fact can be pretty good. I don't think it's that bad. Hey, Gavin. No Goblin Chieftain? Yes, I think Goblin Chieftain is just a bad card. Like, just not... So it doesn't solve problems for goblins because it's not actually a good answer for Plague Engineer most of the time. It's often a slower clock than War Chief is, because... especially with, like, pile drivers in your deck. It's another red card. It sets you up for combat blowouts. It's very dangerous. Yeah, Earwig Squad's great. Shadow can't kill this guy, right? It's like literally impossible. Black creature that costs more than 4 mana. Like, you don't. There's no removal spell in your deck that can kill this. Yeah, can't. Shadow doesn't play ball. It's blue-black. Can't snuff out. Can't push. That's pretty funny. I don't know what I would hit with I guess post board against Shadow. I'd probably just like try to snipe the Plague Engineers out of the deck. Yeah, that's probably what I do. Like take 3 Wastelands or something, depending on my mana situation. I don't know. Actually, Gavin, while you're here, I want to ask you how I'm not... I used to side... How did I side versus Shadow back in the day? Right, yeah. I could also just take Shadows, that's true. Game 1, I'd probably take the Shadows. So the only, like, slam dunk card, I think, is, like, the 2 Chalices. Maybe Pyros? See, I feel like I really don't want Pyrokinesis in my deck when you're playing 4 Hymns. And, unless you mean, Red Blasts. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so Red Blast was the other card I was considering. I don't want to lower my creature count, as much as possible. So then cuts, I would cut, like... I don't like Prospector versus Hymn decks, especially ones with Plague. War Marshal's an all-star. Any of your non-Plague draws, he's like the best card in the deck. Maybe the 3rd Pile Driver. Like, I'm undecided on Pile Driver, actually, against Shadow, because it's like, you put yourself low, so Pile Driver could win out of nowhere, but on the flip side, you put yourself low, so I don't need the burst damage as much, because if I'm attacking, then anything... attacking with anything is probably good enough. I mean, yeah, I'm just all about just like as long as I'm casting creatures every turn, I Siege Gang. I mean, you mean Sling Gang? I mean, yeah, this card seems like unbeatable if you don't have a Plague Engineer. But also just like Matron for Ringleader Chains, like. Yeah, trim some bad X ones. That's like my thinking as well. Fnatic probably go, though he's a good answer to Delver, but I'm not super scared of Delver in the Shadow matchup. Shadow become popular or something? No, I've just played against it like twice in forever. Like, I just keep seeing you and Arkin play it, and I'm just like, I haven't played this matchup in like months, aside from the one time I played against you. Though it's. I looked up Because I was wondering if we'd ever played before, and I know there was that one time. But it says this happened. I don't know how this happened. I don't know if he just scooped after game 1, but I don't remember that happening. Anyway. Moto, please. That's when you first started playing Moto? So Skirk Fnatic are probably EDC cuts, and then I'm not sure about... This gives me faces rage quit. So Trashmaster seems like pretty medium to me, because like even though it is a Lord for Plague, and you're a low removal deck, he's pretty expensive. So I think he's a cut, and then like a Lackey or Gem Palm might not be good. Alright, that sounds reasonable to me. I think I used to be boarding Pithing Needle because you guys were playing multiple Liliana Last Hopes, and I think I did that in the showcase and didn't realize that you weren't playing that card anymore. Because I think the biggest thing in that matchup is just like, I just need as many creatures as possible. I mean, it's polar, as in it's great in every circumstance where you don't have a Plague Engineer. So I think it's like the best card, it's like the best card of the deck outside of those circumstances. So I'd be very, in my past against Shadow, I was just like I matron for War Marshal more than any other card against Shadow. Anyway, I'm not too worried about the Shadow matchup. Like your sideboard's really stocked of cards that are really good against me now, which is annoying. Like you've 2 Blue Blasts, cut a Pile Driver. Yeah, that's reasonable. That's the thing. It's like I'm not sure. Like this could be a reasonable cut setup. 3 Pile Driver probably not necessary. No Sting Scourger. I also think Sting Scourger sucks. Let me try to say why Sting Scourger sucks, because I always say it and people don't believe me. Sting Scourger is card disadvantage at a relatively poor rate. It offers a unique effect that requires a very specific setup to actually work. And the way the deck is constructed is that it's often not set up to take advantage of the tempo that it provides, because it's a tempo card, right? Like, first of all, people say to play it to get rid of Grizzlebrand, Marrowlage, Emrakul. We create a maker for Emrakul. Grizzlebrand, if it hits the battlefield, you're like 99% dead anyway. And Marrowlage, you need to have them make it on their turn, which they very rarely do, or have a Vial on 2, which is a number you don't want to sit on. I have seen plenty of Goblins players lose to lands or depths because they sat their Vials on 2 to represent or have the option of Sting Scourging and lost because of it. You need to be proactive. If they could very, very, very easily beat a Sting Scourger with just a crop rotation for Sajiri Step. So it doesn't work against the fatties. Against the like other fair creatures, the only one it's like actually mana efficient against is like Knight of the Reliquary, and everything else is cheaper than it, or just as much. So it's really not very efficient. Sting Scourger is just, I think, a pretty low power level card that happens to do a unique thing that makes people want to play it more. Yeah, Gavin, those are good points. Like I understand that, but like those are good for like other Goblins players in that how to use our damage sources inside of combat in order to basically gang up on a single large creature. Like, you know, use your Jump Hammer Munitions Expert in combination with a Crater Maker to kill something bigger is really good. That's definitely a really good point. So definitely, if Goblins is running into Shadow, that's 100% what you should be doing is trying to set up situations where it's very risky for the Shadow player to attack, because they are like this hyper aggressive Delver deck compared to most other Delver. Yeah, right. Threat light. Yeah, if you get to handle one of the big threats like a Shadow or a Gurmag, you're definitely in great shape, because it's not free to cast multiple Gurmags, and there's only so many threats in the deck, right? There's only 12, right? There's 4 Delvers, which are easy to kill. And they don't, like, it's easier to kill Delver against Shadow than it is against other Delver decks, because they don't have as much removal to, like, you don't have to be as scared of, like, bolts on your stuff to make your Crater Maker or whatever inefficient, or I mean your Jump Home or Expert not actually do the job. That's interesting. Force the first Shadow, puts him so far ahead. Usually, I mean, So you're against Shadow. The job is really just gum up the board. War Chief's really good against Shadow, because again, there's only like 3 removal spells in the deck, or like 4. There's like maybe 2 pushes, 2 snuff outs. Is what I've usually seen. Sometimes less. And if you untap the War Chief against Shadow, it means that you can double spell or triple spell, and they probably can't come back from that. So resolving War Chief is huge. Vial is the best card in the deck by far. Hey, Blob James Blob, hosted for 37 viewers. Thanks very much. Welcome to the Goblin stream. I'm starting to lose my voice. Since we've got a whole bunch of people popping in. Let's try. We'll play a match. We'll play a match while we're here. I mean, I definitely can't play a whole league, but we'll play a match. So welcome if you're new here. My name's Eli. I stream a lot of Goblins content. If you are especially interested in more like dedicated Goblin stuff, I've got a Patreon where I have lots of specialized stuff, including a sideboard guide, mulligan guide for various matchups and macro archetypes. I've got videos on specific matchups, all sorts of stuff you can check out there on the Patreon. It's in the description. Bob's Bread. I think this person plays Post. Mostly combo stream. Thanks, man. So this hand's like this is round 1. I was reviewing a previous league for the most part, but since you showed up, gotta play a game, right? I think we can mulligan this. It's like really close actually, because double Pile Driver is like a pretty fast clock, and we have good mana. But I think we can do better. All right. Yes, this is no longer retro Goblins. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Just got dunked on by combo. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to throw back Slang Gang, Chain Whirler, or Ringleader here. It's Ringleader. Post confirmed. Wasteland, wasteland, wasteland. Port. Alright, I'm going to follow my own advice here. I should have played the Crater Maker. It's actually 1 more damage. Please play Trinisphere. Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. That's what you want to see. Speak of the devil. Post. All right, that's a lot of mana. Oh, geez. Let me just War Chief attack. That's a lot of damage. Can't Matron because of the Trinisphere. Also, we would rather just port. They're also just dead next turn. Alright. Double, that's a lot of Glimmer Posts, but I think they're still dead. 6 mana. Ballista for 3? Sure. Shooting down Pile Driver. Sure. I think we Chain Whirler here, so we're not taking up Vial. They missed a damage. Now they're at 8. So they have 6 mana, 7. So they could always dust me. Okay, that doesn't really do anything with Trinisphere in play. Okay. 3. We couldn't play Lackey because of Trinisphere. Sure. Kill the Slinging. Yeah, Trinisphere and Delve is like a weird interaction. Oh, Jump Home? Is that lethal? That is lethal. Good call, chat. Got him. Alright. Oh, Damping Sphere, you're so good. Damping Sphere and Needle, all we really need. So Fnatic comes out, and Chain Whirler's like pretty medium. It's pretty mana intensive. It hits pretty hard though. Like Chain Whirler generated 7 damage that game. Make Eldrazi soup. We could cut a Jump Palm over it. I like having 2 Jump Palms in the deck. I'm really scared of Spyglass. Cap 7. More scared of Chalice. Chalice would also suck. I think this is a mulligan. It's too vulnerable. Yeah. His hand's like infinitely better. Can we throw back the Vial? It seems really weird to do that, right? But it's really high upside. Fuck it. Oh boy. Don't you dare turn 1 thought on me again. Come on. Stupid. That's really stupid. This is dumb. This is dumb as fuck. Alright, take the Lackey. This deck is ape. Vial's a fine draw. Draw Crater Maker. It's pretty good. Do have like a zillion mana here though. Yeah, basically Tron. Blast Zone. Okay. That's like honestly a-okay with me. Let's try Crater Maker. Second Vial. I mean, they must not have action in their hand if that's what they're doing. I don't think I can afford to Wasteland. Also, wasting Glimmer Post doesn't do a whole lot. Okay. So my out is drawing Crater Maker. I guess Mock War Marshal keeps me alive. Okay, dude. Now I think I'm on 0 outs. I would qualify what my opponent had as the nuts. Alright, run it back. Turn 1 Thought Knot plus more follow-up is just like, nobody's beating that. Yeah, sounds good though. I'm going to play 2 pile drivers on turn 2. Or do we do pile driver, crater maker? I like double pile driver. Yeah, turn on Karn's afraid to do it. Yeah. Alright. Do you have another nutty monolith hand, or are you dead? Love a land. All right, they conceded. I was going to ask, is it correct to... it's probably correct to Crater Maker the Monolith, right? Cuts off an additional mana compared to porting, and I can still play my Vial. Well, we basically goldfished each other turns, or games 2 and 3, but that's post for you. Oh, we top deck Trashmaster. Port plays around Glimmer Post better. That's true. That's true. So we port them, and then they go. So they have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Are you mulliganing double Cloud Post Grim Monolith? It's not that likely I have a turn 4 kill. I don't know. Maybe it is. Most people... I mean, if you have turn 1 Karn, I mean, like, even if they had turn 2 Thought Knot, they'd still basically be dead, right? The Thought Knot, like, what, eats the Lackey, and then they take 10 from the pile drivers, and then I play Crater Maker. Like, Karn's gonna die on board literally immediately. They would need turn 3 All Is Dust to get out of this. It was a slightly early concession because I might have fucked up, and so if I port them, they can have play Glimmer Post, have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They could have All Is Dust. Yeah, they've turn 3. They've 7 mana on turn 3 through a port, but taking out the Grim Monolith here would I think taking out the Grim Monolith is better because it'd have to be specifically Glimmer Post to get them up to 7 mana. And I get to develop my Vial, which does matter because because it lets me keep porting them, even if they had like. So say they had like I blow up the Grim Monolith and I play the Vial, and so they have 4 mana. So they have another Solana. Say they have like a Ballista for 3, off of like another Post or City of Traders. Like even assume it's not Ancient Tomb. So there'll be 8. I could probably swing out with the team. The Ballista would essentially trade with Pile Driver and Lackey. They take 3 down to 5. I port them. And then from that point on, I'm going to be able to start vialing in Crater Maker, War Marshal, and Trashmaster. And if I draw lands, well, it's going to be broken from that one, so hard to say from there. So yeah, I think if they didn't concede there, I think I would blow up the Monolith and play Vial. All right, my voice is really going, and I have to record tomorrow with Tom. So I'm doing an episode of Goblin Gauntlet, which for those who don't know is my special Patreon series where I break down really specific matchups with experts in that deck. So we're doing depths with Tom tomorrow. We're probably going to do like whatever, probably going to do like medium depths because that's the most common version. Like I don't see turbo that often, and it's just like a total horrific matchup anyway, so like it's not even worth talking about. But slow depths is really interesting. I've had a lot of really in-depth matches against like medium depths because it looks like a nightmare matchup when you first look at it, but I think there's a lot that Goblins can actually do with its play to steal it. I think the build that I will do, like this is, I'm playing a very below average amount of depth hate in this sideboard, so I think I'm probably going to test with 2 needles, because that's, I've always run either 2 needles or 1 needle 1 Caracas or 2 needles 1 Caracas. This is a very abnormal time in terms of like how much depth hate I have. And I also will play, I'll probably swap out Pashlik Mons, because I think Pashlik Mons is like secretly one of the best cards in our deck post board against depths, because it's really helpful for killing off Plague Engineer while providing pressure, and also killing off Dark Confidant kind of freely. I've done a lot with Pashlik against depths, which is kind of crazy. Top 5 scariest people on Moto for Legacy. JPA, yeah. JPA is terrifying on Sneak and Show. Lewis is pretty scary. Matt's Soul, yeah. Matt's have I ever played Matt's? I don't know if I've ever run into Matt's. Oh, he's beat me twice, yep. Yeah, JP and Matt's are probably the scariest. The Storm Crew, like obviously you don't want to run into Bryant ever. Bryant Cook. You can't escape Mets. Newton's very scary, yeah. Have I played against Newton? Yeah, I've lost against Newton 3 times, yeah. Elves is generically kind of okay. Like, I'm like slightly positive against Elves in the aggregate, but against Newton, not a chance. I think I played against JPA once. I remember it very well because I fucked it up. I actually could have won the match. Yeah, I could have won the match, but it required a really like bizarre line that ended up that would be like vialing and Sting Scourger early, and then sacking a goblin to pay with Prospector to pay the echo cost, and I ended up being 1 damage short after an Emrakul attack. And if I had done that line, I would have won. I would like to respond. Yeah, Marcus. Yeah, I would like to respond is always on High Tide. Who else is scary? Never run into Anurag. Don't think I've ever run into Arkin. Oh, we just played a match for practice. That was Stoneblade, and that's just a good matchup for me. Stryfo, yeah. Stryfo's pretty terrifying. I think I played against him twice, maybe 3 times. I guess since the Moto reset, I played against him once and I won, but that was like he couldn't hit his lands. My Moto nemesis is XJ Cloud. D&T is a good matchup for me, like a solidly good matchup for me, but he always gets in my head. He always, like, I always, like, look back at my match with JR and lose. Like, and I look back at my match and I'm like, oh, if I'd done this, I would have won. But I always, like, try to think, like, too many steps ahead, and then I just do some really boneheaded thing, because I'm just, like, trying to get Galaxy Brain about it. and it inevitably screws me. Like, I've lost like 4 matches against D&T. Just like all my losses to D&T are against JR because I fuck up. Oh yeah, Rich Cali, I can never beat that guy. He just always has the days that I can't beat. Always has the Force of Will for Vile. 100% of the time, Delver flips every time. Like, can't beat Rich Cali. Not a chance. Yeah, he's also just really good, of course. Yeah, but it just feels like you can't win, right? And Delver's just like pretty frustrating. I mean, so that one game we played was just like, hey, better pile driver than munitions expert, right? It's like double pile driver in turn 2 was a hell of a clock. All right, I'm gonna stop for now. I'm making dinner soon, and my voice is ragged. Let's see who else is streaming. And Boss Malamujo. Malamujo and I always trade matches, and they're almost always 2-0, which is kind of funny. Like, Malamujo. So 2-0, 2-0, 0-2, 0-2, and then 1-2-1. So I'm 3-2 against him. Our matches are always really close. Like, even though like the game state or like the record isn't in terms of games, it always feels pretty close. Is no one else streaming Legacy? Landon? I mean, I would never want to face Landon on Reanimator, but he doesn't play Reanimator that often anymore. If you run into Landon on Reanimator, you're just fucking dead, so just fucking scoop it up. Anyone playing Legacy? I mean, there's a lot of like serious ringers on like Cliffy on Storm, Cyrus on Storm, Aegis on Tess, Cliffy and Cyrus usually on Ant. Balenciaga, he always plays decks that are good for me. Like, he's always on like Maverick or Stoneblade, so I think I have a pretty good matchup against Balenciaga's decks usually. Wow, we played a lot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm like 5-4 against him. Yeah, we have good matches. I usually lose to him on Maverick, and I usually beat him on Stoneblade. These go back a while, though. This is way back, about a year ago. I need a new nickname in Delver chat. I'm 1817 now. All right, we got a person on Strifopile here. Shadow. What do you guys want to watch? Shadow or Strifopile? I'm partial to Strifopile. Next stream will be probably Sunday. Because I'm recording. Strifopile, not a good about Strifopile songs. I'm recording tomorrow. Friday, I might be able to stream, but I might have something going on that day, and I know I'm busy Saturday, so I might be streaming Sunday. All right. So who's this person? I don't know who this person is, but we're gonna spread the love. Legacy streamers. Gotta go around. All right. Thanks all for watching. Hope you enjoyed my recap of that previous league and like breaking down how we can beat Breach and how like what aspects of the deck you need to exploit in order to come out ahead. I think is a valuable lesson. So please check out the Patreon, check out the YouTube channel, follow me on Twitter, all those things. Thank you for all the new followers. Thank you, James, for the host. Appreciate it. And I'll catch you guys another time.